The last real world champion. The legacy of Nature Boy Ric Flair. Tim Hornbaker, you did one hell of a job. An author of 10 nonfiction books, including Death of the Territories, Expansion, Betrayal, and the War That Changed Pro Wrestling Forever, and National Wrestling Alliance, The Untold Story of the Monopoly That Strangled Pro Wrestling. Welcome back, pro wrestling fans. Welcome back, IWC. It's your old buddy, the guardian of chaos, Big Daddy, and I tell it like it is. I'll say that to say this, coming to you live to tape 25 feet below the surface of the earth, here for another special edition on a Sunday with story time on Guardian of Chaos, the YouTube channel for Chaos Corner. That's right, it's Sunday. We're going to take a little break from flashback and we're going to delve into another special edition, as I just said, of story time with the G.O.C. That's me. Big shout out to my one and only loyal sponsor, and that would be Mr. Hempel Stilskin over at Sweet Heel CBD. That's right, sweetheal.com. You want edibles, you want powder, you want lotions, you want tinctures, you want gummies, whatever it is, from pillar to post and coast to coast and border to border, it's my old buddy, Mr. Hempel Stilskin, over at Sweet Heel CBD and sweetheal.com. And I believe it's still in effect. If you use the promo code CHAOS, that's right, CHAOS, I think you get 20 or 25% off of your order depending on how much you spend. Does it get any better than that? One man, unique, unedited, unscripted, raw dog for you, the fans. So we're going to get right into it. It's another heat wave, humidity, tornadoes, thunderstorms, lightning here in the greater New England tri-state northeast area and across the globe. Much love and respect to everyone that's tuning in today, especially my two moderators that are holding it down, keeping it real, and maintaining, and that would be the OTS Tribal Queen. Big shout out to the Tribal Queen, and of course, my buddy, Austin Nance. We're going to jump into it. I'll do a brief monologue here, maybe 4 or 5 minutes. We'll probably go at least 45 minutes, maybe an hour. I don't think we're going to do this into a two-parter, but it's story time. So kick back and relax. Grab a coffee, grab a beverage, grab a cocktail, grab your ass, I don't know, grab your friends, grab your neighbors, go to the barbecue, drop an elbow on that like button, email me, inbox me, say something in the live chat when I premiere this later on. Much love and respect. We went off the air abruptly on the last flashback, which has been an unbelievable series, and I've had a great response from all you fans. And just know that I know, and you know that I know, that you're watching. Go and check out the last previous episodes of the Jim Cornette Experience at about 4 minutes and 12 seconds in when he was reviewing AEW's ratings. Hello? McFly? Is anyone home? Don't tell me they're not fucking listening. I told you guys, my over 50 years in this fucking industry as a researcher, a historian, a scout, an agent, a producer, a smark, a mark. That's right. For all you geeks and goons and virgins and neckbeards and dweebs and mouth breathers, a mark. I said it. We're all marks at one time or another, or we wouldn't be in this business. And of course, I say it all the time if you're a regular here. My over 3 decades in this independent pro wrestling industry working with all the Hall of Famers, heroes, legends, young lions, veterans, rookies, stars, talent, and I took the fucking bumps. That's right, I took the fucking bumps. And how many out there in the IWC that do these podcasts can say that? And this isn't a podcast, this is a show. Over 3,000 videos on this channel, pushing towards 1 million total views. Let that marinate. Let that sink in. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Go to the playlists. You'll find everything from my in-ring career, which I have a lot of footage coming out on that, and all the events I worked with, and heroes and legends. It's all here on the channel. Over 400 episodes of Chaos Corner. I don't know what you're doing, why you're not spreading the word, why you're not sharing this. This is pure entertainment. You come here to learn history and facts and knowledge and information. So when you go to the next barbecue, the next venue, your next outing, a family dinner, to work, the water cooler, the pub, the tavern, the restaurant, wherever the fuck it is that you go, and you can actually add something to the conversation that's relevant. That's why you're here. My unique perspective. Let that marinate. Over 100 events a year I was booked for throughout my career, coming out 2 and 3 times an event with my guys, my proteges, my stable of men. That comes out to be a couple hundred matches a year for an independent pro wrestling manager, the biggest, baddest motherfucker in this industry. The most well-known unknown, and I apologize for the cussing. It just happens. I'm full of piss and vinegar. I was going to say full of piss and vinegar. Well, you know what Bully Ray said to me. Do I have to go through this again? Sugar-free Red Bull. They don't fucking sponsor me, though. I hope this is a distraction for you guys and gals, because I know it is for me here. That's for sure. And we might do this into a 2-parter, depending on how long we go. And you can see I have that AI bitch on in the background. So if she interrupts us, we're going to have a problem. We're going to have heat here in Chaos Corner, man. I might get up and smash the damn thing. I don't advocate violence unless it's needed. Speaking of that, in this crazy, insane world, stay mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically fit. That's the most important thing that I could tell you. Surround yourself with like-minded people. Situational awareness. Equip yourselves. Shout out to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, because if He's for us, no one else can be against us. That's my firm belief and my message that I push out here on this channel. I don't always give you opinions, and I don't always push politics, although the insanity of what's going on in 2024 and how we're spiraling here in this country, and I don't always push my beliefs. But this is my channel, and I will put out the message that I want here for you fans to believe in. All chicanery aside, this is a shoot when it comes to that. All right. Sit back and relax, as I said. School is in session. Chapter 23. The Legacy of the Nature Boy. And we don't want to go with what's happening in 2024. He's a little out of his mind, the Nature Boy, but he's on my Mount Rushmore. Let's respect it for what it is. And bear with me, this is the first time I'm reading this. We are reading this along together, so you'll have to put up with the nature of my linguistic skills. And you know you like it when I get tongue-tied, man. I'm just saying. I'm just telling the truth here. I'll try not to look down, look up, look sideways. Class is in session. Let me take attendance. Bueller. Bueller. Anyone? Check in on the live chat. Let me know that you're here so I can cross you off on the attendance sheet. There is no question about it. Fans, friends, and family members of the Nature Boy Ric Flair were scared. After word broke that the 68-year-old Flair was in critical condition in the ICU of an Atlanta area hospital in August of 2017. Now let's think about it. We're here in 2024, not that far away from August of 2024. So what's this, about 7-8 years ago? You guys know I failed non-credit math twice in college, and I had to take it 3 times to pass the course. So let that sink in for the time frame of where we are. We're in 2024 in reality, but here for the legacy and for story time purposes, we're in 2017, the summer of 2017. People took to social media to offer their heartfelt sentiments and prayers. Longtime friend Michael Hayes rushed to the hospital to show his support, while many others in the wrestling world posted words of encouragement and love. The fight of Flair's life began with terrible stomach pains from a blockage in his bowels and developed into the early stages of kidney failure and congestive heart failure. Flair later said, "I crashed in an airplane and broke my back, and I've been hit by lightning. But this is totally different. Anything I've been through before this is nothing like this." His condition was touch and go, and doctors placed him in a medically induced coma to assist in his treatment. Following intestinal surgery and the insertion of a pacemaker, he was sent to a physical rehabilitation center to complete his recovery. The challenge was grueling, and despite all odds, Flair persevered. In other words, he kicked out again. Let it be known worldwide that Nature Boy, is back up and running, looking as only I could look, to quote the Nature Boy. Flair declared a few weeks later. He thanked his fans for their support, and his health was steadily improving. Flair recognized how fortunate he was and credited his fiancée, Wendy Barlow, with helping him get through the ordeal. On October 26th, 2017, Flair was back in the spotlight, walking the red carpet at the Atlanta screening for the new ESPN Films documentary, Nature Boy, about his life. The film, directed by Rory Karpf, premiered on ESPN on November 7th, and more than 1.8 million viewers tuned in. To people unfamiliar with Flair's story, the documentary was eye-opening, and Flair was completely honest about all aspects of his past. "Why lie about it?" Flair said. He asked a radio host when discussing the film. "My life's an open book." Flair also admitted he was happy with the finished product. He acknowledged that people were going to have different opinions on subjects, but that was okay since the footage was truthful. Let me pull you guys in closer so you get a look at my dapper yapper. Whoa, I get it. I scare the rats off cheesecake. I make onions cry. I understand the camera puts 10 pounds. It might have put 20 pounds on me. I understand that, man. This is a XXX t-shirt. What do you want me to tell you? Woo! What do you notice that's different as you look at this video of the G.O.C? Leave a comment if you notice anything different about the G.O.C. "I thought the documentary was excellent," Tom Sorensen said afterwards, admitting that some of it was tough to watch. But it was accurate, and Flair's story was indeed a mixed bag of triumph and tragedy. Flair expressed a little disappointment in a few of his friends for their on-screen comments, as the truth was hard to hear, as it is for a lot of us in a lot of different ways. The film was notable for the participation of Flair's first wife, Leslie, and Flair complimented her in his second book, Second Nature. Although the documentary brought many sensitive topics to the forefront, he was still recuperating from his health problems. Flair was getting tremendous media coverage. On October 31st, on the studio album Without Warning, 21 Savage, Offset, and Metro Boomin released the rap song Ric Flair Drip. It charted and was later released as a single, complete with a popular video featuring Flair himself. As of 2022, the song had more than 1 billion streams on Spotify and better than 425 million views on YouTube. Holy cramoly. Flair made his WWE homecoming during a Starrcade house show in Greensboro on November 25th, 2017. He was honored by the 10,000 fans in attendance and gave an emotional speech to the crowd. He also celebrated with and embraced Charlotte, who defeated Natalya in a cage match. The following January, Flair appeared at the 25th anniversary of Raw at the Manhattan Center in New York City alongside other legends. He received another big ovation. Unsurprisingly, as soon as he was feeling better, he was back to work on the road. On February 22nd, 2018, he walked the red carpet with superstar musician Bad Bunny. No me jodas, maricón, bébete culo, pendejo. What I say, man? They nodded. Kayfabe, man. Lighten up. At the Lo Nuestro Awards in Miami. And in March, he debuted the Ric Flair Collection, his own line of custom-made suits. For a time, he had an investment in a racehorse. The Four Horsemen, I guess that makes sense, right? That September, Rick and Wendy were united in a special commitment ceremony in Rosemary Beach, Florida, and a number of familiar faces were in attendance, including The Undertaker, Ricky Steamboat, Dolph Ziggler, and Dennis Rodman. Talk about an eclectic bunch. Remember, fans, I'm reading this for the very first time, reviewing this for the very first time along with you. Let me adjust the G.O.C. Oakleys here, the Armageddons. That's what they're called. For the 1,000th episode of SmackDown on October 26, 2018, Flair reunited with the members of Evolution, and he sang a song with Elias at Starrcade in Cincinnati on November 25th. On February 25th, 2019, he turned 70, and Barlow planned a surprise birthday party for him a few days earlier at the 1818 Club in suburban Atlanta. The bash was attended by over 150 guests, and many well-known names were present to celebrate with the Nature Boy. NBA legend Charles Barkley and Boxing Hall of Famer Evander Holyfield were two of the most prominent. And Flair was able to reconnect with many of his old friends. On the evening of his actual birthday, he was in the State Farm Arena in Atlanta for Raw, where another birthday celebration was to take place. When Flair was supposed to head down to the ring, the focus shifted to the backstage area, and he was shown on the ground, having been beaten up by his former Evolution mate, Batista. Flair didn't physically work the angle, as the purported assault took place off camera, but it advanced the storyline feud between Batista and Triple H. Their conflict ended at WrestleMania 35 in East Rutherford, New Jersey, and Flair helped Triple H score a victory by giving him a sledgehammer, which Triple H used prior to landing his pedigree for the winning pin. Charlotte, along with Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey, became the first women to be featured in the main event of WrestleMania later that night. And Lynch took home both the Raw and SmackDown championships. In May, Flair returned to the hospital and had another procedure on his heart. He was released within a week's time and sent his thanks to hospital staff and fans over social media. Talk about kicking out in 13 lives and 15 lives. Ric Flair? They say, only the good die young. Yeah, I'd rather laugh with the sinners than cry with the saints. The sinners have much more fun because only the good die young. I wouldn't rather laugh with the sinners than cry with the saints. Too much? Too soon? No? Well, where was I? The two savages are down here in the bunker. Eli and Emilio, the Maine Coons. Emily, in honor of Emilio, my former Maine Coon, may he rest in soul across the Rainbow Bridge, I miss you, brother. Well, yeah, I like pussycats. Well, what'd I say, man? My family's watching, man. Wow. He was released within a week's time, as I said, and he was sent many thanks via social media. As a result of this medical issue, Flair had to cancel a scheduled appearance at StarCast 2, a wrestling convention held from May 23rd to the 26th in Las Vegas. The event was promoted by Flair's former podcast host, Conrad Thompson, who by this point had become Flair's son-in-law. Thompson had married Flair's oldest daughter, Megan, on October 13th, 2018. That's why I tell you, you come here to learn facts, history, things that are relevant and pertinent to the IWC. A major Raw reunion occurred in Tampa on July 23rd, 2019. And Flair shared a stage with Hall of Fame lineup of superstars. He was surrounded by the likes of Stone Cold Steve Austin, the immortal Hulk Hogan, the Heartburn Kid Shawn Michaels, Triple H. He's got quite the proboscis, does he not? Rene Levesque, whatever he calls himself, Paul Levesque. Booker T, five-time, Mick Foley, and Kevin Nash. Stone Cold wrapped things up in the ring with beers and a series of toasts. Late in the summer, Flair began to take exception to the use of the man in association with Becky Lynch. I agree with that. Why are you in this day and age with all the bullshit going on in the Alphabet Mafia and trans and all that garbage? I'm not going to get into it here on Chaos Corner on Storytime. We know it's wrong. You're born the way you're born with what God gave you, male or female. So you're going to call a woman the man? Get your head out of your fucking ass. That's just my opinion. You don't like it, you can change the fucking channel. And I apologize for the cussing. I really do. I know I'm doing a lot of it. It just comes out of nowhere. And it's on a holy day. It's on Sunday. But although every day should be a holy day. I just think I just got out of church services. And this is not a joke. I repent for that. I mean, I really do. I know it sounds like a work, but it's not. This is me. This is raw dog. This may be a gimmick, a persona, a character, but it's mixed with a lot of Big Daddy. That's me. I give it to you real here, straight up. The good, the bad, and the ugly. You can think I'm a hypocrite. I really don't care because I tell it like it is. I'm just saying, man. Don't be offended. As you remember, Becky Lynch had an in-ring rival of the daughter of Flair, obviously Charlotte, a.k.a. Ashley Flair. He owned the trademark of to be the man, you gotta beat the man. And according to the reports, he felt he should be compensated by the WWE. As Jesse Ventura, who's a sellout right now, who I was a big fan of, but he's a sellout, and he always said it, follow the money. And that's what happens when you live in man's world, the fleshly world, instead of the Lord's world. And I hate to be too biblical here. I'm just giving it to you straight. And according to reports, he felt he should be compensated. Despite the ongoing dispute, Flair continued to appear on SmackDown and Raw. A new angle was formulated, setting up a 10-man tag team match between Team Flair and Team Hogan for the Crown Jewel program in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Let me not get started on that when it comes to politics and blood money and what they're being paid in the kingdom over there and how they treat women and women's rights and so on and so forth. There's a lot of different things we can get sidetracked on here, but I'm not going to do it. I'll mention it and then we'll push right past it, but keep it in the back of your mind. I'm serious. On October 31st, Flair's squad consisted of Randy Orton, Bobby Lashley, Shinsuke Nakamura, Drew McIntyre, and King Corbin, but they were defeated by Hogan's crew, a team comprised of Roman Reigns, Ali, Rusev, Ricochet, and Shorty G. Boy, has a lot changed since then. That's good shit, huh, pal? I know you could be watching too, McMahon. You know that I know you could be watching. Shorty G. Thank God he's Chad Gable right now and really doing well for himself. Rusev, a.k.a. Miro, he's lost in space somewhere, gotten divorced and everything else. Ali is persona non grata. Ricochet, who knows? He may end up in AEW. Roman Reigns is on hiatus, although the bloodline and Jacob Fatu showing up, and Tamatanga and Tangaloa and Hikakoa showing up, and everything else they got on. And if Roman comes back, and The Rock and the Usos, are we headed towards a steel cage match between Bloodline versus Bloodline? Is that what we're headed for in the WWE in 2024? I'm down with that, man. And whatever show they call it, I don't know, Blood and Guts, Gut and Blood, that's AEW. Who knows? I watch the product. I report on it. I'll keep my story accurate. Let's get back to Ric Flair. In May of 2020, Flair signed a new contract with the WWE, and the quarrel over the man was resolved. Money talks, bullshit walks. He participated in a several months long storyline with Randy Orton before being punted by his former protege on August 10th during Monday Night Raw. WWE Champion Drew McIntyre gained retribution for Flair and the other legends Orton had attacked by downing him in an ambulance match on September 27th at the Clash of Champions event in Orlando. And let's face it, the Clash of Champions in the WWE is terrible compared to the original Clash of the Champions for the NWA and Jim Crockett promotions. I mean, they really destroyed it. I mean, let's see what happens and where we're going to go. Don't get me started on the ratings for AEW and the WWE and NXT with 700K and AEW Dynamite with 500K. What the fuck? They're blaming it on the Big Bang Theory? What are we doing here, man? What are we doing? I know I'm getting sidetracked here at 25 minutes in, but that's why you come here for story time. Oh, where was I? Once Orton was placed into the ambulance and McIntyre won the bout, Flair was shown driving the vehicle. After a few months hiatus, Flair reemerged in January 2021 in Charlotte's corner, and a developing scenario saw Flair form a bond with Charlotte's ring rival, Lacey Evans. Talk about a cringe storyline. It was in 2021, if you remember. It wasn't that long ago. It was during the whole scandemic, plandemic, but you guys get it, right? The angle wasn't overly popular, and by the end of February, faded away completely, as I just said. Flair remained busy performing in commercials and making appearances, and was always eager to offer his thoughts about the business in interviews. As we watch the whole series right now, and Who Killed WCW, of the four-parter, it's coming up next week. It's been an interesting watch. People say, oh, it's been beaten to death. It's over 20 years ago. I get it. But it's good for the younger generation and the people in today's crazy industry to learn about what happened so we don't repeat the same mistakes like we do in history as it is anyway. It's been a pretty good series on Dark Side or on Vice TV with Who Killed WCW. I've enjoyed it thus far, and Ric Flair's had his 2 cents worth. He was a big part of it. So go check that out when you get a chance. Regardless of his role, Flair was a dutiful employee of the WWE, and he enjoyed being around the youthful talent in the promotion. Flair acknowledged how much the company had helped him, but he also was ready to concede with the two sides had a different vision as to his future. With that in mind, Flair requested his release, and on August 3rd, 2021, the WWE agreed. In a subsequent Twitter post, aka X, Flair thanked the WWE, including with nothing but respect. Several weeks later, he moved to Tampa from Atlanta, and he was spending considerable time training with Rob McIntyre at Hard Knocks South, a private gym. He was also enjoying the weather, boating, and the social atmosphere. Woo, as only he can do. Unknown to the public at the time, Rick and Wendy were spending some time apart. No big surprise there. And in January 2022, an announcement was made that they were going to go their separate ways. Wrestling was always on Ric Flair's mind. It was infused into his bones and flowed through his veins. He traveled with Andrade El Idolo, who was then engaged to Charlotte, to Mexico City for Triple Mania on August 14, 2021, and he tried to help his future son-in-law in his bout with Triple A mega champion Kenny Omega to no avail. Omega prevailed, retaining his belt. A few weeks later, Flair made a special trip to one of his old haunts, the Chase. That's right, the legendary Chase. The Chase Hotel in St. Louis, Missouri. for the NWA's 73rd anniversary show, and he was on hand to salute the National Wrestling Alliance. Boy, the NWA has fallen, has it not, over the years? Wow, I'm just giving you the good, the bad, and the ugly. Am I right? Still an alternative in this industry. You never want to see any larger promotion or organization fail, but Billy Corgan, who started off with a great idea, has certainly fucked that company up. Why don't you go sniff a couple of lines with James Mitchell on pay-per-view and blow a national TV deal? A good job with that, smashing pumpkinhead. I'm just saying, man, I give it to you straight. A few weeks later, the fans at the venue honored him with standing ovations and a number of collective chants, including "Thank you, Rick." Flair was in his natural environment, speaking from the ring and his heart, and told a number of stories about his time in St. Louis. One of his more famous tales was how Sam Mushnick would pay him $6,000 to main event at the Keel. Let that marinate. And by the end of the night, after partying at the Landing and in East St. Louis, he'd be lucky to have about $1,200 left. Think about that. Styling and profiling, it'll catch up with you. "I'm thanking every one of you fans," Flair told the crowd. "Thanking every wrestler. It doesn't matter what company they're in. That remembers me. It doesn't matter," he said. "Everyone has treated me fairly and has given me the respect that the NWA, the WWE gave to me, and I thank you. It was a remarkable moment for wrestling history, especially with Flair standing before a gigantic NWA backdrop in the ballroom. Flair exemplified the greatness of the National Wrestling Alliance during his years as champion, and in his global travels, he exceeded all expectations, and in my opinion, and I will give it now and then, the true world champion at that time, who went all over the world, all over the territories, defending the belt." I'm just saying. And I grew up in the Worldwide Wrestling Federation territory, with Bruno Sammartino as the champion, perhaps the greatest of all time. Both these men, Bruno and Ric Flair, are on my Mount Rushmore. But let's be real as far as world champions and what it really means. I'm just giving you what I think. And I do that every so often. Leave an opinion. Tell me what you think as far as back then and world champions and defending all over the world. In his speech to the NWA audience, he made another important comment that needs to be remembered. "Everybody knew how hard I worked," to quote Ric Flair. It was true. From his peers to the promoters to fans across the world, the entire wrestling industry and everyone connected to it understood how committed Ric Flair was to being the world champion and to being the best wrestler in the world. Throughout this book, the fact that Ric Flair lived his gimmick outside the ropes has been discussed. His wrestling image was first shaped in the 1970s, and he made it real by traveling first class, by limousine, or by private plane. He purchased extravagant clothing and robes, had his hair perfectly styled, and walked the walk. Behind the microphone, he let his flamboyance explode, and delivering night after night in the squared circle. He proved his championship caliber. Altogether, it was a remarkable complete package. Once he left the arena, whether traveling alone as the NWA World Champion, with the Horsemen, or with a gaggle of other wrestlers, Flair was ready to exploit the finer points of whatever city he was in. And his Flair persona came alive at local establishments, to be seen by whoever else was out that night. That's true. He'd party well into the night, jump up early the next morning to work out, and repeat the scenario all over again. To other people, even veteran wrestlers, his schedule was unnatural, but Flair thrived on it. People today understand that the illusion created in professional wrestling wasn't actually an illusion at all when it came to Ric Flair. But he knew when to tone back the outrageousness of his personality to fit the moment. Not so much in 2024. And he was very respectful of people he found himself around in various public settings. Well, I'll say it again, not so much anymore. It wasn't abnormal for him to call someone sir, nor was it unusual for someone to be bowled over by his amiable demeanor. Wrestling is like any sport, Flair explained to a reporter in 1987. When I'm not competing, I don't carry that hostility. I take it into the ring. I don't bring my business into my personal life. Well, not so much anymore. I think, personally, perhaps ruining your legacy, Nature Boy. I'm giving it to you straight. Woo! As only the G.O.C. can. He was lighthearted when signing autographs, and he once spent an hour in a three-piece pinstripe suit doing just that for the Boy Scouts at the fairgrounds near Charlotte. Even when the recipient of an autograph wasn't sure who he was or why he was important, and essentially just asked for one because he looked famous, Flair was still easygoing and playful about it. He was back in the day. I told you, I met him in the mid-90s. I think it was 93, 94 at the Boston Garden. Yeah, I took a peek at the helicopter and I couldn't help it, man. He was right there. And he was nothing but class to me. A true gentleman. Shook my hand. Gave me the time to speak to me. I was with the legendary Bull Montana at the time. That's right, Bull Montana. Duck, go it. Don't go Google it. Turner Broadcasting executive Steve Chamberlain became close friends with Flair following the purchase of Jim Crockett Promotions, and he was taken by his intelligence and talent. From time to time, Flair would pop into his office to chat, and their conversations helped Chamberlain gain a more thorough understanding of the wrestling business. In terms of marketing, Flair was a prize weapon in Turner's arsenal, and one year Chamberlain invited him to sit down in the company's booth at the Video Software Dealers Association convention in Las Vegas. Flair was more than happy to do so, and attendees were wowed by his presence. The line for his autograph grew to immense proportions, and Chamberlain said that he was a real showstopper, not Shawn Michaels. Really? To this day, Chamberlain cherishes his memories of Flair. Larry Matzik, after resigning from his position in the St. Louis office following difficulties with Bob Geigel in 1983, received an unexpected call at home from Flair, who offered his words of concern during a 2-hour conversation. For that reason, Ric Flair will always have my respect and gratitude, Matzik later wrote. Flair touched many people. We know that. Plane Ride from Hell. Does that ring a bell, anyone? Hello? You don't want me to go through that again, do you? Go out and watch it. He touched many people on a personal level, and sincerity was a big part of his inborn character. His former attorney, Dennis Guthrie, spent a lot of time with Flair under both business and personal circumstances, getting to know the entire Flair family. With respect to Flair, Guthrie said that in private, he was the most gentle, kind individual you'd ever have to meet. I've heard many of those same stories. So there's got to be a degree of truth. You can't deny it. Now, today, 2024, I don't want to get distracted from the story here. We know the story of the Nature Boy, Ric Flair, and what's going on recently in the last couple of years. As an example of his thoughtfulness, when Guthrie's father was in the hospital, Flair went out of his way to visit him, and Guthrie never forgot his kind effort. Another time, Flair surprised a 19-year-old woman who had been hospitalized after an industrial accident. Besides, Ann Mullenix was enduring a long road to recovery, and Flair made a special trip to Spartanburg General Hospital to visit her. Everybody thinks he's so mean and nasty, and that's the way he is on television, said Mary Jesberg, Molyneux's cousin. But I'll tell you, he's a super nice fellow, and he did a lot to pick up Barbara's spirits. Now, you'll hear a lot of stories about Flair. Well, just like this. He was the genuine article. In Marion, North Carolina, Flair once received a message from a police officer shortly after arriving to the locker room. He hadn't even had a chance to unpack when he was asked to visit several boys from a home for handicapped children. Flair dropped everything and rushed to see them, giving each of the boys the thrill of a lifetime. It's a very nice feeling to walk in these places and be so well received, Flair said. The fans are really what makes professional wrestling. How true is that? And they make it what it is, and I feel obligated to do everything I can for them. At conventions and meet and greet events, Flair frequently went the extra mile to oblige the people who had come to see him. In 1991, he made a real imprint on many of wrestling's superfans at the Weekend of Champions in New York City. As the headline attraction for a convention featuring Buddy Rogers, Lou Thesz, Bruno Sammartino, and many other greats, Flair couldn't have been more accommodating, and his one-on-one interactions with enthusiasts were tremendous for the sport. Gary Ports, a talented second-generation wrestler from England, was another individual touched by Flair's kindness. His father, Jeff, had been a mentor to Flair in the AWA, and Flair repaid the favor by helping in Gary's development. Ports was 10 years younger than Flair and just learning the rudiments of professional landscape after years of amateur grappling. Many times he worked on Flair's garage gym and Charlotte, lifting weights, and soon Ports was chauffeuring Flair on the road in his Lincoln Continental. Incredibly generous and caring, Flair was like a big brother, and he eventually became Ports' real-life brother-in-law when Ports married the sister of Flair's then-wife, Leslie. They stayed close through the years, and during a television taping in Florida, Flair put over Ports, then wrestling as Scott McGee in the middle of the ring. Flair was world champion at the time, and the victory was a huge boost to Ports' career. By either making guys look good in the ring or actually dropping a match to them, Flair helped many young wrestlers. Sting and Lex Luger were two notable examples. Others included Butch Reed, Barry Windham, Brad Armstrong, the Road Warriors, and each of the Von Erichs. He assisted wrestlers in other ways too, including by recruiting guys from the territories to Jim Crockett Promotions, usually giving them a nice increase in stature and pay. In other situations, he gave advice to help wrestlers improve. Platinum Blonde Buddy Landel was doing his version of the Nature Boy in Jim Crockett Promotions in 1985, and Flair was on board with him using the gimmick. One time in Raleigh, Landel entered the building wearing casual beach-style clothing and flip-flops. Flair pulled him to the side and told him, "If you're going to be me, you got to be me," and essentially told him that he'd never be caught dead walking around in public in that kind of attire. Valid point. Flair was always impeccably dressed, often wearing suits to and from the arena. If Landel was going to be taken seriously in the role, he had to do likewise. Considering Flair's work ethic and commitment to the business, he earned great respect from his peers. A number of guys have publicly thanked him for his direct influence and help, and with that, he's earned a lot of loyalty. Very true. In the ring, Flair was all about doing whatever was necessary to make the match and the moment special. And 9 times out of 10, pretty good odds right there, that meant making his opponent appear to be unstoppable. And if you don't beat anybody, then you ain't nobody. And that's just a fact. And I say it all the time. Make that person look good. If they're a nobody, who did you beat? You beat nobody. It's not about going over, it's about getting over. And I say it all the time. He'd control the emotion of the crowd by employing ring psychology, listening to what tactics and styles worked on any given night. Once he hooked the crowd, it was a roller coaster ride of wrestling entertainment, and Flair ensured that he was the most talked about performer as fans went home. Even when he was defeated, those same sentiments and statements rang true. In a smaller setting, such as the Chase Hotel in St. Louis or the WTBS studios in Atlanta, Flair's arrogance left its mark on fans. "Now we go to school," Flair said. He'd shout from the ring as he prepared for his figure 4 leg lock, and the audience couldn't help but enjoy the master at work. At different points in his career, Flair discussed his thoughts on retirement, and he believed he'd hang up his boots for good. In 1986, the 37-year-old told a Minneapolis reporter that he was sure he'd be done by his early 40s and settle into a backstage job with Crockett. Flash forward 36 years, and Flair's love for the game still hadn't diminished. On July 31st, 2022, a mere 2 years ago, fans, he was set up to lace his boots for one final contest, and his loyal fans were thrilled by the news. He was returning to Nashville, the site of many of his great ring battles, and the 73-year-old was determined to give fans a better match than his last. And in 2011, that was his last match, which was in TNA before the 2022 bout in Nashville. For months, he had been working out in the gym, building his strength and stamina. He was also back training in the ring to recondition his body to take light bumps. And brief footage of his sessions with Jay Lethal was posted on social media. Flair brought up the possibility of his pacemaker being unplugged after taking a bump to the mat. But he was seemingly gaining more and more confidence that he was safe. Now, you guys know the story after that and what's happened since this. It was 2 years ago. With great anticipation among the nearly 7,000 fans in attendance I watched live that night, Flair teamed with Andrade El Idolo, his son-in-law, against Jay Lethal and Double J, Jeff Jarrett, slap nuts, for his last match in Nashville. The 26-minute contest took its toll on Flair, and his exhaustion was clearly evident. He withstood the difficult physical challenge of the moment and prevailed with a pin of Jarrett at the finish. Flair was the first person to admit that he was driven by the thrill of performing before an audience, and that, combined with the constant adulation he received, made it a special and unique historic moment for wrestling. People wanted to honor him, get his autograph, and buy his merchandise. Others hoped for the chance to shake his hand and thank him in person for a lifetime of memories. With videos available on demand on websites like YouTube, that's where we are right now, Guardian of Chaos on YouTube. Footage of Flair's classic matches and promos are now only a few clicks away. The gold mine of off-the-cuff interviews demonstrating how he went from 0 to 60 in a split of a second, coolly transitioned between a raving wild man and wrestling's greatest playboy, proves that he was in a universe all his own. Between his two autobiographies and the 30 for 30 documentary, Flair has spoken about his personal life, as honest as humanly possible. He has discussed his love for his children, the death of his son Reed, and his 4 marriages. No writer or pundit can elaborate on those topics any better than he did himself, and his word on these subjects is final. As a sidebar example of Flair's care for his family, during the late 70s, he wrestled a particularly bloody match in Raleigh, and upon its conclusion, he looked as if he had just stepped off a battlefield. Blood was streaming down his face, and the accompanying sweat undoubtedly stung as it streamed into his forehead wound. Instead of treating his cut or stopping the steady flow, he went to the snack room of the venue to use the phone. Kevin Duffus, a director for WRAL-TV, inadvertently heard the conversation. Flair was talking to his daughter, telling her that he was going to return home soon to see her. It was a touching reminder that Flair was a loving father, and no amount of blood loss was going to stop him from doing what mattered most. And that was calling home to speak to his child. Before he died in June of 1992, Buddy Rogers, the original Nature Boy, offered his opinion about Flair, telling Dr. Mike Lano, "I want everyone to know that Ric Flair is a hell of a worker and a great guy. I would add Flair to my all-time worker list of Lou Thez, Vern Gagne, Johnny Valentine, Jim Londos, Ed Lewis, Danny Hodge, Killer Kowalski, and guess who?" That was a distinguished list of legends, and Rogers wasn't alone in his admiration for Flair. Harley Race was exceedingly complimentary toward Flair, and Jack Briscoe, another former NWA World Champion, stated, "If there was a man born to be the World Heavyweight Champion, to hold the world heavyweight title, a man for the times, it was Ric Flair. Terry Funk said that Flair was a pleasure to work with and acknowledged him as one of the best performers in the world. Triple H, John Cena, The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and Hulk Hogan, the greatest names of the modern era, have each praised Flair in their own way. Austin, who was pegged as the second coming of Flair during his early WCW stint, called Flair his favorite wrestler of all time. The man who trained Flair, Vern Gagne, watched as his protege left the AWA and became a global sensation in the NWA. I think Ric Flair made it bigger than I thought he would, Gagne later admitted. High praise indeed. He's done very, very well. I didn't think he would do that well. Ric Flair's success in professional wrestling is overwhelming. Although the WWE recognizes him as a 16-time world champion, Flair is, and more accurately, a 20-time title holder. 20 times. That accounts for 9 NWA titles, 8 WCW titles, 2 in the WWF, and 1 WCW International All-World titles. He's been enshrined in 7 major halls of fame, including the WWE twice. He was named Wrestler of the Decade for the 1980s. And in 1999, he was among the leaders in the online voting for the Times Person of the Century. Let that sink in. Mull that over. To this day, he is honored and celebrated for his wrestling achievements, and it's universally accepted that there will never be anyone quite like Nature Boy Ric Flair ever again. Flair told a reporter that he had been lucky. They had come a long way at just the right time. Perhaps that's a little true. But he did the rest of the work himself, with the tools he was given, and Flair credited God with giving him a natural gift. He maximized his success and became a star. His athletic ability and the conditioning he worked so hard to achieve were invaluable assets, and combined with his charisma, confidence, and articulation, Flair was the complete package. Let's be honest. With his night-to-night consistency, performing great matches in defense of his world championship in cities big and small, he set a new bar for his successors. However, no one ever did succeed him or attempt to live up to his standards. He was the last traveling champion. The territories were eroding right before his eyes, and the next NWA champion had a different set of responsibilities. The maddening schedule for the touring title holder ended, and the remarkable challenge with the great champions of the past all endured ended with the Nature Boy. In 1981, right around the time of the first world title win for Ric Flair, he was asked what he owed the fans. I owe them my homes, my cars, my clothes, Flair said. I'm conscious of the fans, and I'm conscious of their support. And I'm conscious of what they've made possible for me in my life. He was determined to make people happy. Wrestling supporters who paid their hard-earned money for a ticket would always get a first-class effort when Flair was on the bill. And he never wavered. I've got a job to do, whether there's 100 people or 20,000 people in the stands, Flair said. The bond he had with the public was a two-way street, and he got as much out of the connection as the fans did. The hardest thing, though, was saying goodbye. His final match in 2022 was a testament to his heart and wanting to go out on his own terms. No one was telling him how and when to do it. I have endured the test of time, Flair once declared. Truer words were never spoken, And there were no goodbyes when it came to the Nature Boy. His legacy would live forever. In the meantime, Flair continued marching to his own beat, and his loyal fans were anxiously awaiting to see what he had in store next. And right, wrong, or indifferent, good, bad, or ugly, here in 2024, we know what's happened over the last couple of years. Just recently, from the scene at the airport pizzeria or wherever he was, getting a slice of our beats and spending the thousands of dollars, inebriated and getting into it with the employees. We take the good, the bad, and the ugly with Nature Boy Ric Flair with his legacy. Truly one of the best, if not the best ever. And that's what I present to you here today on this edition of Story Time on Chaos Corner. We're just about an hour in, 56, 57 minutes. The chains got heavy. And I hope you guys and gals appreciate what I just read for you. It's a one-of-a-kind book. Tim Hornbaker on the life and times of Ric Flair, the last real world champion. Now, I kind of have to agree with that. Let me guys know what you think. And I'll be back this week with Flashback, the episodic YouTube series here on Chaos Corner. I'm not going anywhere yet. Hold on. Let's take a breath. I just read for an hour straight for you guys, including their points, Tim's points, Flair's points, and my points. Don't think you're so sharp just because your head comes to a point. Everyone enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Let's have a safe, productive week coming up. Stay safe and be aware. I'll say that to say this, because I tell it like it is. Don't you dare miss it.